Hello, everyone. It's Saturday. It's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have each and every one of you on this beautiful Saturday morning. Oh, no, Saturday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. For those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. And for those of you that have been watching, we really appreciate you. I want to talk about the breaches. They've been ridiculous as of late. And one of the ones that happened recently, Americold is this cold storage and logistics company that's been facing major IT issues. I think it got breached sometime last week. Nadine talked about this, and even though we talk about the bigger companies and breaches, they'll more than likely bounce back. It's the smaller companies that don't get that chance. So I'm pretty sure Nadeem has a lot to say about that.
Yeah, there's so Americold is a big company. I mean, they've got about 17,000 worldwide employees. So it's not a small company by any stretch of the imagination. What this breach tells me, there is a process breakdown at Americold. There was another breach that happened at Americold in 2020, and now there's another breach. So, two breaches, that means that they really didn't learn a lot in the first breach.
Yeah.
And there is a break in the process, which for a company that size, you would think that, they would after the first time they would learn and make the right investments. I guess you can look at it two ways. One is, hey, yeah, we were breached and we should make investment to secure ourselves better. Or I guess you can say, hey, we've been breached. How many companies have been breached more than once? It's not going to happen to us again. Yeah. Bury your head in the sand, right?
Right.
So the problem is, you have to look at your core processes, and it's not a matter of it's not like the bad guys are spear fishing. They're not. It's like buckshot. It's like a bird shot, right? And they're throwing a wide net, and whoever gets caught in it gets caught in it. It's like fishing.
Yeah.
So that's what happens a lot in small to medium sized business as well, right? It's people think that, we're too small, nobody's going to target us. It's not a matter of targeting. It's a matter of running a network of bots. They detect a vulnerability and they attack. They don't care how big or small you are. If you're bigger, great. The ransom or whatever is going to be bigger. But it's not a matter of targeting. It's just throwing a wide net and see who gets caught. At the end of the day, it's just business to the bad guys, and pretty lucrative business at that.
Yeah.
So I think with all the breaches that have happened, and more companies talking about security, talking about wanting to secure their networks, their processes, and their customers' data, we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of companies out there who are still in the mindset of we're too small to be breached, and that's not the case. I mean, I know of individuals who've gotten breached. I mean, I know there. So this one lawyer guy I knew, and he got breached, and he called me one day, and it was a simple phishing scam, and he fell for it, and he's a lawyer. So it's not a matter of education or anything like that. It's a matter of having the right processes in place, and really, you can't just put a process in place and forget about it. It has to be continually evolving. The process is the continual cadence of evolving. That's what you need to have in place. That is why we do some of the things that we do. There's a lot of work that happens on the back end. On the front end, uh, we just support our customers when it comes to IT, but on the back end, there's a lot of routine stuff that happens.
Yeah.
There's um, uh, like, I mean, in a week. So we're a small company, right? In a week, I can, besides our huddles, we have like 4 or 5 different meetings, and these are critical meetings. I mean, these are where we set our standards, we update our standards, we do knowledge transfer because different departments need to know what other departments are doing. So there's a lot of that going on, and it's done on a cadence. It's done on a routine basis. So putting something in place and then forgetting about it, that's not how things get done, and that's a recipe for failure. We want to make sure that whatever processes you have, you are continually making them better, because the bad guys are evolving over time as well, and we just have to evolve better and faster. Now keep in mind, the bad guys, they only have to win one time, and they get your stuff. We, the good guys, have to win every time. We can't lose even once. So the cards are stacked against us.
Yeah.
Think of it
Well,
that way.
you said something that is interesting, because I've noticed in conversations with quite a few smaller business owners, they have this "it's set, forget it, out of sight, out of mind" type of mentality when it comes to IT. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because I think it's just a disaster for somebody one day to just slip up, and then now there's a ransomware attack. And I've noticed that quite a bit, where they'll say something like, "Oh, we're in the cloud, we have everything in the cloud, we're good, we're safe." And it's like,
Yeah, it's not just the cloud. So yeah, I mean, I've heard that too. People say, "Oh, we're in the cloud, so we're safe." No, you're not. The
right.
cloud has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I've heard some other things as well. Like I've had prospects come to me and ask me, hey, this happened, and can you make a suggestion on what I should put in place so it doesn't happen again? And they don't understand that the problem is not the product. The
Mm.
product that was in place that failed is not the problem. The problem is your process.
Mm.
Whatever the product is, you would need to have a process in place to monitor, remediate, and take action. And if you don't have that process in place, then no matter how good of a product you have, sooner or later it is going to have an issue. It is going to fail.
Yeah.
All right. And this was actually a recent example. I met with a company. They're into manufacturing, and they had server one of their main servers crash, and they lost a bunch of data because after the server crashed, they found out that their backups weren't working either. So all these red flags are going up for me, right? And they have an in-house IT person. So of course the in-house IT person is in this meeting. He's pointing the finger at the third party. The third party wasn't in the meeting, so they can't point the finger anywhere. But what everybody was asking in that meeting was, well, what would you recommend to replace this dead server with? And I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. That's not your problem that the server died. Servers die all the time. The
Mm.
problem is not that the server died. The problem is that your process is broken. You did not catch those drives giving off alerts for months or years before they actually died.
Mm.
Even 10 years ago, the technology was there where drives would give you alerts before they actually fail. And then this server had a RAID system. So even if one drive failed, it would keep running. And that's what it was doing. Nobody paid attention. It wasn't until the second drive failed that everything crashed and burned. And so people fail to realize that normally in life, what we see are the symptoms. The issues are usually deeper. And people take the symptoms as, oh, that's my issue, when that's not the issue. The issue is a few layers deeper. So always try to think of it that way, that the server crashing is not the issue. The actual issue is a few layers deeper. And in this case, I would say the issue is the monitoring of the server. You don't have anything in mind. So I can recommend a new server. It will last for 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it is. Eventually it will have an issue. And if you're not monitoring, if your process is no good, you're not going to catch the anomaly and it's going to do the same thing again. And then, 4 or 5 years down the line, you'll be in the same situation. You'll ask another company now, hey, can you make a recommendation for a good server? And they'll recommend whatever. So needless to say, we did not do business with this company because I told them, look, I cannot help you. I cannot give you just a spec of a server that you can just put in place and forget about it. That's not how technology works. Your process is broken. What I'm saying is you need to have a better process in place. And as far as the server goes, you can replace the hard drives, build a server, and it might be good for another 10 years. I mean, as long as you are monitoring it and you're taking action, that's really what matters. And the same thing with security. The problem with security is it has to be proactive. It cannot be reactive. It's not possible, because if your security is reactive, by the time you are ready to react on something, the damage is already done.
It's already done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So hopefully this Americold outage kind of makes sense to people. It's the same company. They had a breach in 2020. Now they have a breach and it's 23. There is a process problem. These are just symptoms of a problem. The problem is deeper, and it's a process problem, right? I mean, there's so these companies usually they have CISOs, chief information security officers in place, or I hope they do. But a lot of times the CISOs are looked at as a burden, right? Because CISOs make recommendations on how to secure your systems, but the regular IT folks, and even management, they always look at CISOs as a burden, as something that they have to have because of their compliance requirements. They don't really want them, but they have to have them, but they're not going to listen to them. And that's when stuff like this happens.
Jeez, I didn't know
and
that.
CISOs are not cheap. I mean, it's the CISOs, it's not even a commodity. They're just so hard to find. So, and I'm sure, Americold has a few on staff, but at the end of the day, the decision makers, they don't want to hear from the CISOs because it's just an extra expense to them, right? And I don't know, you can call them bean counters or you can call them whatever you want, but at the end of the day, they look at CISOs who are looking at security from a perspective of a necessary evil, right? And they don't want to listen to them. And usually, if you go deep enough, eventually it will come up to a culture issue in the company.
I remember, with the time we had, I remember, it's funny you mentioned bean counters because I remember when I first started with PCSN, there was a specific company that we were working with, and the dean was making much needed necessary recommendations for them as far as securing their infrastructure. And one part, really wanted to do it, but it always stopped at the bean counter. If I'm not mistaken, they ended up getting breached. If I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember, but I think there was a breach that occurred, and it was like Nadine gave you basically the keys. He gave you everything you needed in order to make sure this doesn't happen. And now you're having to pay more now than you would have if you'd have just done that. You could
have paid a fraction of it to secure yourself, and not to, there are some intangibles, right? I mean, the loss of reputation, it's very hard to put a dollar amount on. And that's where a lot of companies, they have a tough time recovering when something bad happens like this, right? And especially in the SMB space. So, with that, the lesson is always look at what you're seeing as a symptom, or look deeper. The actual problem is deeper. With security, that is very true. The breach is just a symptom. The actual problem is deeper, where in this case, I think in Americold's case, the process is broken. And that's why you're going to see, until their process changes, they're going to be breach after breach, because it's, it is what it is. So I think, hopefully that helps people out. If you go on that premise, what you see is the symptom. The actual problem is a few layers deeper. I think that really applies very well when it comes to security. So look at things that way, and that will and always be proactive about security. Do per the standards. A lot of times I know developers do this, engineers do this. They'll be like, well, let me just do it this way. I can do this right now. I can make it work. Let me just make it work and get out of here. That's the wrong way of doing it. You got to follow standards. If something is not working per your standard, you need to figure out why it's not working per your standard. I mean, it could be, I mean, it's happened before. It could be a compromised ROM in a switch somewhere. Who knows? It's happened before. It happened to Cisco, very large company. So the thing is, the issue is always a few layers deeper. So think of it that way. Hopefully, it'll save you down the line. And reach out to us if you have any issues. I mean, we make these recommendations to a lot of companies, to a lot of prospects, and a lot of times, these are things that we've implemented with our customers that have saved them over and over, because we can actually look at the logs and see what type of traffic is coming in, and hey, here's an attack going on, and this is what it would have done because we captured it. But it's amazing that in this day and age, people are still. I guess it comes down to the bean counters. They're looking at every penny saved as profit. So with that, I think we'll call it a day. Everybody have a great day, and always remember, what you see is the symptom. The problem is a few layers deeper.
There it is.
Have a good one, everyone.
Have a good one.